Good morning, this is Cornelia Schoensworth with CNN Student News, and this is my girl Brie talking about the Galilea campaign.
Hi, this is the girl Brie bringing you news about the Galilea campaign. The major goal of the Galilea campaign is to establish a supply line in Russia. This battle was fought for the rest of the year. It was really bloody. To finish my segment, in December, the Allies gave up and began to evacuate, and it suffered 250,000 casualties. Imagine how many people that is. Now back to you, Cornelius.
Thank you, Brie, for informing us about the Galilea campaign. Next to speak about the effects of the home front is our next reporter, Galilea.
Hey guys, I'm Galilea, and today I'll be talking about how this war is currently affecting the home front. America finally joined the Allies, but the war had already been raging for 3 years now. This world war has become a total war, which means that countries devoted all the resources to the war effect. And the government is controlling the factories and told them how much to produce. It also resulted for women and African Americans to have jobs that only males are supposed to have. Big change, isn't it? Now back to the studio with Cornelius.
What is the use of fighting for a vote if we have not got a country to vote in? Just days after Britain declared war in 1914, the suffragette Mrs. Emmeline Pankhurst cleared the way for suffrage campaigners and millions of ordinary women to work for the war effort. As the nation's men headed off abroad for the front lines, years of undreamt of opportunity and hard slog followed, where women began to taste independence and were also able to prove that they could do men's work. They made shells and bullets, they drove trams, welded, they heaved coke and coal, entertained troops to the sound of gunfire, and played football in front of tens of thousands. All activities thought absolutely beyond a woman until now. Life on any front line in war is tough, I know that, and the home front in World War I demanded both courage and endurance. Families shattered by bereavement, injured men coming home, and at the end, no national acceptance that women should hold on to the new status and skills they'd acquired. So, what did World War I really do for women?
Sorry. Thanks, Galilea, for talking about how this war is affecting the home front. But before I move on, back to Brie for a brief segment.
Hey, it's your girl Brie. I just wanted to bring you back with how the war ended and how the Great War demolished the Austrian-Hungary Empire and Russian Empire communism arose in Eastern Europe. But France and Britain gained many territories from defeated nations. And the negative side, when America came back from war, production ran slow and jobs were scarce and little. In my prediction, I think a horrible depression will come for America in the next following years.
World War I finally drew to a close in 1918, ending one of the worst military conflicts in history. Hi, I'm Rebecca Brayton and welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be looking at the final days of World War I and how it finally came to an end. There were several key events instrumental in ending the conflict. Great Britain's naval blockade of Germany is considered crucial. Established in the first year of the war, this blockade aimed to restrict Germany's maritime access to raw materials and food. Germany attempted its own blockade of Great Britain, and in 1917 adopted a policy of unrestricted submarine warfare. This posed a great danger to commercial shipping between the US and Europe. It was for this reason the United States finally declared war on Germany April 6, 1917. Meanwhile, war efforts in Russia were growing unpopular. Their economy was near collapse, and food shortages led to protests from civilians. These protests resulted in the abdication of Tsar Nicholas II and the appointment of a provisional government. Seeing their army becoming increasingly ineffective on the Eastern Front, Vladimir Lenin and the Bolshevik Party came to power, promising to pull Russia out of the war. On the 3rd of March 1918, Russia agreed to the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk and ceded large portions of its land to Germany. Now that the war was all but over on the Eastern Front, Germany could transfer their troops west. However, it was necessary to leave troops behind to occupy the large amount of acquired territory. On the Western Front, the Allies were set to receive a massive boost of manpower and resources from the United States. In an attempt to end the war before this could happen, Germany pushed forward with the Spring Offensive of 1918. The Germans were initially successful and moved to within 75 miles of Paris. However, they were unable to solidify these gains. Adding insult to injury, Germany's morale at home and on the front was quickly fading. Starting August 8th, a series of offensives was launched by the Allies which effectively ended the First World War. Now known as the 100 Days Offensive, this surge ended when an agreement was signed to cease fighting on November 11, 1918. The other Central Powers, Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire, had all signed their own armistices earlier in the year. Despite fighting being over, the war did not formally end until numerous treaties were signed between the nations involved. Most notable of these was the Treaty of Versailles, which Germany signed on June 28, 1919. This treaty demanded that Germany accept sole responsibility for causing the war, as well as pay billions of dollars in reparations. Ironically, the severe and controversial Treaty of Versailles is considered by many as a direct cause of the Second World War.
Breaking news!
The influenza epidemic of 1918 killed more people than the Great War. 20 to 40 million people, most deadly for ages 20 to 40, globally killing people.
One of the worst natural disasters in recorded history was caused by a virus. The influenza pandemic of 1918 struck every major U.S. city, dropping people where they stood.
There were at least 20 million people killed worldwide, and it's probably the worst pandemic the world has ever known. There were more people killed from influenza than there were from the First World War.
The war itself was the problem. If there had been no war, that year's strain would have stayed isolated. But when Allied troops met in northern France to exchange fire with the enemy, they also exchanged a lethal strain of flu. So it began.
It then went from France to the United States and it disseminated from Boston.
At Fort Devens, Massachusetts, one case of flu turned into more than 6,000 cases between September 1st and September 18th. It took only 17 days. India lost nearly 4% of its population. Alaska, 8%. In the South Seas, the death rate was 20%.
People were absolutely panicked because somebody could be playing bridge one night and they would be dead the next day. And so they did all kinds of things. They were wearing face masks, and in fact the police all wore face masks. They were carrying little pouches of garlic and onion, just anything that they thought would protect them from the flu.
They had no idea that they were leaving exposed the very place where flu enters the body, their noses.
Nothing was known about how to cope with it. And that is something that began to emerge when we got into the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s. By that time, there was enough knowledge and experience and the development of techniques to make it possible to proceed.
And here's a funny video.
Go.
So here's some puns. Brie-tastic.
And I need a dad from boy, shorty wild like bad. And I like tell me I should make a trip, shorty bang.
Thank you for watching CNN Student News. It's been quite a day with you guys. See you, man. Sorry.
I'm Galilea, and today I'll be talking about
What do you think they'd do if I stole this damn phone?
nothing. Unless you steal that much. And Russian.
Alright. I didn't. Ooh, alright. Okay, sorry.
Hey guys, I'm Galilea, and today I'll be talking about.
Okay, it's okay.
It often results altered for women and African Americans to have jobs that only males are supposed to have. Big change, isn't it? Now back to the studio.
To finish my segment, I look at the camera.
Thank you, Brie, for informing us about the Galilea campaign. Next to speak. Oh, fuck.
Influenza pandemic of 1918 killed more than the Great War. 40
CJ, what is up with you?
Oh, hang on.
Really?
Look for the camera.
Stop it.
Look for the camera.
What?
Babe. I'm addicted to them.
Sorry. Thanks, Galilea, for talking about how this war is affecting our home front. But before I move back to Brie for a brief segment. Thank you, Brie, for informing us about the Galilea campaign. Next to speak about the efforts on the home front is our next reporter, Galilea.
I think it's an FX. And I'm like,
Tell me I should make the trip, Charlie.
hell yeah.
Follow the general lips.
Boy, get up out my face. Got my ex kid calling lame boy. Get
Stop it.
Hello, people.
Stop it.
Mom.
Sorry, I ain't got no money. I'm not trying to be funny, but I left it all at home today. You can call me what you wanna. I ain't giving you $1 this time. I ain't gonna run away. Video game lover, we should love each other. I said, video game lover, we should love each other.
Snap your finger, do your step. You can do it all by yourself. Baby girl, what's your name? Let me talk to you, let me buy you a drink.